everybody, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to share a shaker card design with you that features one of the new Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember release products. This is the Warmer With You stamp set, and this is in conjunction with Gina K designs. This stamp set features a bunch of adorable snowmen that are perfect for creating really cute winter scenes. I'm not going to be using any of the snowmen today or any of the snowflakes, but I'll be using that beautiful birch tree silhouette. I'm going to be pairing this with the Flowing Vine collage from Simon Says Stamp. This is a previously released die. I'm going to start off by taking the wonky stitched rectangle dies from Simon Says Stamp and that Flowing Vine, and I'm going to die cut a piece of ivory cardstock. I've been loving using ivory cardstock lately. It's become one of my favorite colors. So I've die cut that Flowing Vine from the ivory cardstock, and you can see I get this beautiful window. When I saw this birch tree stamp, I thought it would be really fun to make a wooded scene that allows the birch trees to be a silhouette behind a winter sunset, and then have the flowing vines be kind of like your peek through window to see into the woods. I think that was just kind of what was going through my head when I was working on this card. So to do my stamping, I actually decided to go with some distress inks because I like the way distress inks react with water. Now, when I started off by stamping these trees, my idea was to have, of course, this trees be a silhouette. But when you have a sunset in the background, the back side of the trees are glowing. So the side that's facing you would be really, really dark, but along the edges there would be some light. So what I did was I first stamped the trees in the antique linen. Then I shifted my paper just a smidgen, and that allowed me to restamp the trees again, this time with gathered twigs. You can see we have them offset a little bit. I'm going to repeat the same process and again shift the paper, this time stamping with ground espresso, so a really, really, really dark brown. Now I did have to stamp each of these images a couple of times, and that's where the MISTI comes in handy. But as you can see, this really does not look that great yet, and it really kind of just looks like a mess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some clear embossing powder over top of the inks, and because distress inks stay wet, they are able to hold the embossing powder for a little bit longer here. So I'm going ahead and heat setting the embossing powder that I applied down onto these trees, and as this melts, this creates the look of a tree that's glowing around the edges. And because we put the embossing powder on top, that's going to allow me to now come in with some distress inks and an ink blending tool and ink over top of the trees and not harm any of the ink that I have on top there. So you definitely want to go ahead and heat set this if you're going to use the distress inks to stamp with your trees. If you use a more permanent ink, you won't have to worry about this. So I started off by ink blending on some scattered straw, some cracked pistachio. Now I'm working on peacock feathers, and I'm working up towards the top of the trees, and the topmost part of the trees are going to be really, really dark. So I'm going to have some chipped sapphire here, and then I'm also going to bring in a little bit of dusty concord. After I added all of my inks, I'm going to take a distress sprayer and spritz some water into my hand so that I can flick it onto my paper. It's going to give me a little bit of a splatter effect. You can skip the splatters if you'd like, but I like having the texture, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I did do all of this inking and stamping onto some watercolor paper because it holds up a lot better to all the ink and water we add on top. So I die cut a stitched hillside border die from Fawn from some white cardstock that's going to serve as the snowy hill in my winter sunset scene here. And now you can see how the card's starting to come together, and now that you have everything put together, you can see that those trees really do look like beautiful silhouettes with a glowing edge to them. So I attached the stitched hillside border down onto my card panel, and now I'm going to go ahead and trim this seam panel down so that it fits behind my window panel perfectly. I'm just eyeballing it, I'm not cutting it down to be an exact size. Now, because I'm going to turn this into a shaker, I need to add some acetate to the back side of my window so that way none of the sequins fall out. So I'm using a tape runner here and adding some tape around the edges, and then I'm going to lay a layer of acetate on top of that. Now you'll notice I have 2 layers of acetate, and I will get to why I'm doing that here. I'm first starting off by adding some foam tape around the edges of where my shaker pieces are going to go. I filled that with some iridescent confetti from Pretty Pink Posh, and I'm adding a few little dots of white gel pen on top of my scene to be other snow dots. And this is why I cut a second piece of acetate, is that I'm going to use it as the backer for my shaker. This is my favorite way to make shakers because I find that by having 2 layers of acetate, one be the front of the window and then the other piece on the other side of the double-sided adhesive being the backer. That's going to allow my sequins to move so easily and they don't interfere with the scene that I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that on top of my seam panel. You can see the sequins move around so easily and it really creates the look of falling snow. So now to make this look even more wintry, I'm going to take some Nouveau glitter drops and add this over top of all the vines to create a frosty edge to make them look like they're icy. You can see here as I have a close-up, you can see how after they've dried, they've created this really cool crusted effect. I wanted to go with the look of having the vines and everything be all crusty and icy from the winter. And then I did add a few little gems onto those vines, and I'll show you what I used there to go ahead and finish those off. But first, let me get to the sentiment. So the sentiment is also from the Warmer With You stamp set, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this in 2 different colors of ink. So I started off by masking off the smaller sentiment in this stamp, and I'm going to then ink that up with some deep purple ink from Simon Says Stamp. This matched the Dusty Concord really, really nicely. I stamped that down onto some ivory cardstock, and then I'm going to go ahead and mask off the larger part of the sentiment so that way I can ink up the smaller piece and stamp that right back in place. Because I didn't move the stamp yet from my MISTI, it's going to stamp right over top of where it was originally intended to be. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down in some Cup of Joe ink from Hero Arts. After I stamped my sentiment, I trimmed it down and popped it up off of my card. And these are the gems that I used to add in and around my little vines. These are rainbow gems from Lucy's Cards, and they match the really beautiful iridescent colors of my sequins inside my shaker perfectly. So I adhered those down with some PPA matte adhesive with the help of my jewel picker. And then that's going to finish off this shaker card. You can see it's really, really fun, and those iridescent confetti pieces pick up the colors inside the shaker so beautifully. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some inspiration using the new Warmer With You stamp set from Gina K and Simon Says Stamp for STAMPtember. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and you can head on over to my blog to get more information on this card, including still pictures and products used. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, here are 2 more you might like featuring STAMPtember release products. I will be back again soon with more videos to share with you. In the meantime, have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!